well on its way to this season's well on its way to being over if we drop this one, and
Yeah.
because we're
Let's-
a lot more likely to drop one against the Saints the way they're playing. So that wouldn't bode well.
Well,
for
they're
us.
not though. They're bipolar, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But
But
the
they won't be
Saints-
bipolar against us, Derek.
I don't know though. How many times have we gone into a game where we're like, we have no chance of winning this game? We have no reason to believe we can win this game. We all talked about it 7 days ago.
But we keep coming back to it, and we're going to keep coming back to it until it changes. If we can't get the strength of the team, right, is rushing the passer. If we can't do that thing, we're not going to beat very many people at all. I don't know who we beat rushing the way we are right now.
You know,
The Jets, maybe.
We do get New Orleans at home. I don't think it's going to make a difference where we play Kansas City. We get them at home, but we have to go to Green Bay and we have to go to Denver. And I'll tell you what, honestly, Green Bay's defense looks beatable at the moment.
Kansas City's not having a good year.
Kansas City is not having a good year.
They have the same record we do.
Their defense is bad right now. I'm not sure what happened to them, but
Well, Mahomes has a major case of the pressers. He's trying to win every game by himself.
you know, the only positive
game
for the
manager.
Tampa Bay game is we get them after the bye week. So they have to play and we don't.
But
Yeah,
that
we're not
never
going to
seems
beat
help
Brady.
us.
We're not going to beat Brady. It's not going to happen. He
That
just made
Gary
us
helps
look-
that. I think it'll help them that
Carolina's
week.
undefeated against
We
3
played
really
them
bad
tough. I think
teams.
that'll help them in
Yeah,
that game.
you know, Carolina's, although I don't know, we'll see how they look without McCaffrey full time. That may be different.
What do you mean? We've seen what they look like without McCaffrey for 3 years.
Yeah.
Tell you what,
All
that
right,
guy,
that's
when he's
fair.
on the field,
Yeah.
that guy's like a terror.
That's fair. You know,
Yeah, he's like Jordan Reed. When that guy's on the
Yeah,
field,
absolutely.
everybody has to account for him. The problem
Yep.
is he's never on the field.
this is the last game right now on our schedule. This is the last game I see that I feel really good about.
Yeah, Oakland looks really good.
Yeah.
Philly, you got to feel decent about Philly, even though they're a division, but the division thing comes into play.
I feel
On
better
paper,
about
we should
Seattle
walk-
because they've got to come to Washington, but it's a night game,
What?
the Seattle game. And we haven't, you know,
On
for
prime
what? How
time,
many
yeah.
years has it been now since we've been a threat on primetime TV?
Russell Wilson treats
We
us
took
like-
out the Steelers last year on that big. That was a Thursday night or a Sunday night
That was a
game.
Monday night, wasn't it?
Was it? It was. That
Squirrels
was.
and acorns and
Well, there you go. But at some point, you got to get that first big one, right? So
yeah.
we're on a roll, baby.
I just want to see us play well, and we haven't done that yet.
No. You're
Yeah, I
right.
would
We've
feel a
not
lot
played
different.
a decent game yet. Not
It
even
would
close.
feel a lot different if we played well and the Chargers beat us, or we played well and
We didn't even play well against the Giants. I mean, really.
In spots.
What if
In
we
spots.
if we had won 35-17? We're having a different conversation.
Yeah, we've played well in little bursts here and there, but we've been playing uphill pretty much for 3 straight games. Have we had a lead yet this year, other than at the very end of the Giants game? We had it briefly in the fourth quarter, and then we fell behind, and then got 2 shots at a winning field goal. But I don't think in either of the 2 losses we've led.
No, we
Yeah.
were against the Giants. We were up 14-10.
All right, yeah,
At
right before the
halftime.
half, yeah.
We were leading for a brief spell against the Chargers too, I believe.
Early.
it didn't
Yeah.
It didn't
Second
last
quarter.
long.
We own the second quarter.
No. I think the Chargers went down and scored on their first drive, didn't they?
Yeah, they
We-
did, but I think by the third
Came back in
quarter
the
we
second
were
quarter, I think.
up by maybe 3.
We just
Okay.
need to find a way to end the game at the end of the second quarter. We'd be in better shape.
We need to find a way to play 60 minutes of football.
Yeah, we led 16-13 briefly in the third quarter, Paul. That was the only.
Sorry,
lead we
not to
had.
pivot, but did you guys see Jalen Hurts' quote today?
No.
Yes.
It was the greatest quote I've ever seen.
What did he say?
Hold on, I have to pull this up. I put it on the board. I'm gonna pull it up.
It was
It was-
truly rude, but it was accurate.
It was 100%. Hold on. Here's his
Hold on.
quote. After the drubbing they took to the Cowboys, and I quote, you take you a deuce. You don't sit there and look at it. You flush it and you move on. We're gonna flush it and we're gonna move on.
And to which I responded, yeah, but I kind of do look at
I think I like Jalen Hurts more now.
it.
He said that in his press conference. That wasn't on the field. That was in his presser. He had
I don't know
taken
how good a
shower.
quarterback that kid is, but I kind of like his whole vibe.
I love
his,
him.
His demeanor, his
Yeah.
facial expression never changes.
That guy.
He's like a
got
machine.
handed a Thanksgiving plate full of crap at Alabama, and he took it in stride. And all he did was go get better.
Maybe
Like,
maybe we should trade for him.
It is
I'd take him.
possible that of all those Alabama quarterbacks that he was down there with, he will end up being the best.
Very
in the
much so.
NFL.
He may.
It is very possible, and that's no small statement either. I mean, because those guys are all pretty good, and they're going to be pretty good pros. You know, Tua was like the only thing the Dolphins had, and you can see that now in the way they're playing. I wish
went to
we had one
Oklahoma,
of
he
our
was a
games
Heisman
against Philly
candidate.
earlier in the year, because I'm afraid he's going to be scary late in the year. Well, scarier. How about that?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sold. We're still talking about Jalen, right?
Yeah.
I don't want our defense the way it's looking right now with going after Jalen Hurst. I'd rather wait.
He's gonna run all over us. See, the thing is though, I don't know how long his career goes. I like him. I like his personality. I just don't know if he has a long career.
He's a beefy guy, though. I mean, all right, he's not 250 pounds, but he's not Taylor Heineke either, or Robert Griffin III. There's some meat there. And I'll tell you what, he played pretty smart Monday night. I don't know how much of that game you guys watched, but he actually played relatively smart Monday night. He didn't take a lot of big hits. He ran when he absolutely positively had to, but he made some really big throws. He dropped a couple right on the dime, and it was really impressive. And his receivers bailed him out a couple bad throws too, and made some brilliant catches.
Well, they also cost him that pick six. Wasn't his fault. I mean, Smith fell down and the ball went right to the guy, and he didn't cut down on his receiver. Did you see this? There was a little exchange on the sideline where they showed him coming off the field, and Smith is there, and all Jalen's walking past him, and he just says, "What happened? You dropped it, or you fell." And he just kept walking, right? He didn't shake his head, nothing. He just took the information and moved on. So I do like that kid.
He's dealt with plenty of adversity. So
Yeah, he is.
you
He had to
know.
go to Philadelphia, the poor guy.
Well,
And Oklahoma. Jeez.
Oh, my.
he went. So he got benched in the national championship for Tua, right?
Mhm.
They ended up winning. The following year, didn't Tua get benched for him?
Yes.
And they won it. And then he transferred to Oklahoma, and he was a Heisman candidate. Like, you can't write that book or that movie any better. I like the kid. I do like him. I've liked him since day one, because you don't just overcome that.
So Miami is going to rue the day they made that pick, man. I think.
What, Tua?
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's
Even more than we are. even more than we will.
you just can't draft a left-handed quarterback. It just doesn't work.
Plus his name is Stabler.
The snake.
Well, looking at the flag behind John there, he's probably hoping we draft a left-handed quarterback next year.
That guy doesn't have I don't think he's got a strong enough arm though. Armstrong, I love him though.
You don't think Armstrong has a strong arm? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, the guy can flat out play. I mean,
He's
I think he's
accurate.
elite.
Yeah, but so could Tebow, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
No, this guy can
He's got
throw
a better arm than
football.
Tebow, but I just
This-
don't know if he's got an NFL arm.
Oh, I think he's accurate, man. He is accurate. I don't know if
I'm sorry, I saw one throw. He was on the left hash, and he turned and threw it to the right hash, and I think you could have timed it with a sundial. Like, I'm sorry, like, not to sound bad, but it took forever to get over there.
Come on, Derek. He was putting touch on the ball. Give the man a break.
It was
Well-
to a running back. It was 6 yards past the line of scrimmage.
He's getting beaten to death, so I don't know. But yeah. I
Well,
just don't-
they were playing that traditional power Wake Forest.
They said the same thing about Matt Schaub. The only other, let's see, Don Mikowski and Matt Schaub are the only UVA quarterbacks to ever make it to the NFL, as far as I know.
No, Sean Moore.
Yeah, Sean Moore for a little while. I mean, to be starters in the NFL.
Hold
He was
on,
a
wait
starter
minute.
for
Hold
quite a
on.
while.
I'm gonna Google a name because I think
I guess
there's a
you're right.
name, and maybe
New
I'm thinking
Orleans,
something
right?
wrong.
Well, who was the guy, Kellen, whoever who is in Dallas now? Isn't the offensive coordinator? Wasn't he a UVA quarterback? Or am I mixing up my people?
That's Kellen Moore.
I think that's right.
I think
Wasn't he
that's
a
right.
UVA QB? Anyway, they don't have a lot of Hall of Famers.
No, Kellen Moore went to Boise State.
Okay.
I was thinking Mike Glennon, but I was wrong. Is his brother Sean Glennon?
Don
Wasn't he?
Mikowski tried to pick up my eventual wife at a frat party, so that's kind of my only connection to him.
Jesus, I was way off on Sean.
Obviously failed miserably, didn't he?
That's the story.
The magic man.
I don't ask a lot of questions.
Probably wise.
Can you believe we are most power rankings have us in the mid-20s?
Well, we've looked like that.
Yeah, I can't
I
argue
can't
with
blame
that.
them, but Jesus, if we don't feel like a better team than that.
Well, I still go into this week thinking we are. If we show up and play the same level of flat football and lose to Atlanta, I will revise my thinking about our season.
I think we all need to revise our thinking. There's no way we win 11 games.
No.
Is there any way we win 11 games?
We've
No,
only
there-
lost one more than I thought we'd lose. I thought we'd be 2-1 at this point, not 1-2.
We'd have to go 10-5.
It,
The
I
rest
mean,
of the
not
way.
unless, I mean, you just don't know how they're going to be playing at the end of the season. And
10-4.
I mean, I still think 8 wins might win the NFC East. I don't care how Dallas looks right now.
If here's the thing, and it's the thing you can't count on at any given point in any year, and it's injuries. If we're playing against the same teams that I watched play this last weekend with all of their starters, and that's a long shot, right? But it depends on who they lose. No, I don't see us winning. I don't see us winning 10 games from here to the end of the season. I don't see us winning the NFC East because I don't see us winning half our games in the last 5. I see Dallas beating us twice. Honestly,
Philly once.
I see Dallas beating us twice. I see us splitting with Philly, and Lord knows what happens with the Giants.
We already
Think
lost to
about-
them one time.
Think
Or
about
we
the
didn't-
games.
Guys, shame
Sorry,
on us.
Paul, speak. We've cut you off for
No, it's all good. But just to build off of what you were saying, are we going to even hit 10, 11 games? There's no way it happens, because when you think about a lot of the teams that we were penciling in as wins to make that a possibility, Denver, Carolina, and Vegas, those aren't all shoe-in games this year anymore, based on
No.
how those teams are playing,
No, they're
So
far.
that
So
yeah,
far, 3 games into the season.
that's true. But that difficult schedule that we all perceived it to
well,
be
we
at
all
the
saw
beginning
the
of season,
Chargers as a win. And that
I-
team
I
looked like they
didn't.
could be in
I
the
didn't.
AFC championship game.
I never thought we were going to
Yeah,
beat
you're
the
right, Paul.
Chargers.
You're right about that. You can never, and I said it myself, you can never look at the previous year's rankings and even records and project to the next year. It just doesn't happen that way. Unfortunately for us, you can, but for everyone other team in the NFL, it means nothing. Or means not nothing, but it's very hard to say which teams are going to make a leap because it changes so much.
Yeah, but again, unfortunately, it seems like that difficult schedule is only even more difficult now, right?
Yep.
And I suppose that's just our luck as a franchise.
Looks like it right now.
So we
Yeah.
didn't talk about injuries at all during the pod, but this is our worst game as far as being depleted, even though it's, most years this would be good news. But Leno did not play today, didn't practice. Scherf did not practice. St. Just did not practice, that's a big
Well,
one, I think.
The big one, St. Jude's, he's in concussion protocol.
Yeah, and Ioannidis was limited. So those are 4 key guys that we can ill afford to have.
Well, the other big thing, we haven't seen Ioannidis with any real anything all season.
No, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you're right about that. It might not be as big of a loss because he's not contributing that much, is what you're saying.
No, just that he wasn't. He's. If he doesn't play, he's not a loss compared to what we've had. What we've had, it wasn't good. I'm not saying it is, but having him is a bonus. But if Payne, I don't know. You got to think if Payne plays the way he did this past week, something has to give, man. The guy, like PFF did they credited him with 9 pressures. 9.
So we keep talking about the 4D lineman, and I was thinking about this when you guys were talking about it. It's really not the 4D lineman. It's Sweat and Young. Is it
Young,
not?
yeah.
It's not. Like, I have no problem with the way that
Allen
the
and
interior
Payne
guys
and
are playing. They're
Settle.
making
Yeah.
plays at least occasionally, and maybe if they got some help, they'd make even more plays. But
Oh,
Did
speaking
you
of which,
guys-
I meant to bring this up on the pod. Sorry to Paul. Did you guys know that Sweat and Young were off the field on that 3rd and 15?
Both
I
of
knew
them?
Young was.
Of all plays, that's when you play those.
It's not 3rd and 15. You said it yourself. It's 3rd and shouldn't convert. I'm going to keep correcting you.
So
Why
part
are
of,
those like at this point? Apparently, Young and Sweat have the ability to
Checking themselves out,
shift
release
out.
themselves on their own recognizance.
Guess what? Not anymore. Not when you're doing it on 3rd and 15 on the first drive of the game. Come
I don't know
on.
if you guys, I don't know if you guys saw that piece on ESPN. It was Marcus Spears,
Yeah, I saw it.
former Cowboy, I believe, just going off on Montez Sweat and Chase Young, talking about how they're constantly running themselves out of plays.
Undisciplined and selfish.
Yeah, and just being sack hungry at this point. And I don't know. To me, I think he had a point. This defense, and in particular, you know, 1, maybe 2 players on that defensive line, to me, they just have the feel of being guys that might lack a little bit of maturity at this point, that just feel as though they can get by on pure talent and not necessarily have to adjust their game. When you think of a guy like Chase Young, I feel like the rest of the league has adapted and adjusted to him more quickly than he's adjusting to the league. You know, and the elite players in this league find ways to always stay on top. They find ways to make adjustments. They find ways to adapt in order to gain that edge constantly. And I don't see him as doing that right now. And I think it points to, you know, a little bit of lack of maturity at this point in his career. I think it'll come, though.
Wow.
Do you remember when Sweat was talking about he and Young their goal was to break the NFL single season sack record? I hope to God that somebody sat him down and said, "Shut your mouth." I don't want to
even
like
say
that
that
ever again. Like, when you have 4 sacks in a game between the 2 of you, then you can talk some smack. But until you do, I don't want to hear it. I kind of feel like Del Rio just needs to treat them like rookies, everyone like rookies,
I
because
tell you
we're
what,
playing like rookies.
If I were
And who
the
ta-
defensive line coach, that quote from Montez Sweat would be on the board in the room.
On the
It would've been there
Jumbotron,
Monday.
man.
It would have been there Monday.
In your-
when they
in
went
your-
on
on the fucking
Monday to watch
Jumbotron.
film.
in your locker. I'm texting
yeah.
you every day. Hey, where's your sack record?
Oh yeah, that quote would chase Montez Sweat all over the facility this season.
Yeah.
You started to say something, Paul. I'm sorry, I was rude.
The worm has turned.
no,
my
It's all good. I was just going to say, to tack on to that, and that's what I was kind of alluding to when I was talking about that maturity piece. You know, some of the comments that are coming out of their mouths lines up with that. And the other thing is as well, who says that when you're coming off a 7-9 season? I don't care that you won a division. You were 7-9. You started the season 2-7 and had to beat up on a lot of weak sisters in the league to find yourself in the playoffs. Like,
and
these guys,
we would have advanced in the playoffs if the defense could have shown up a little bit stronger. We had a chance to win that game.
right? I
There
think
was
there's
good enough offensive play. You
there's
cannot
a-
argue that. The offense did enough.
So the key is 2-7, right? So we've got them right where we want
Yeah.
them.
there's
We're
a
on our
little bit of
way.
an inflated sense of self going on. I think there's a bit of an inflated sense of self. And if you watched Rivera on the sideline this past week, I don't want to say he was passive, but he was just letting things happen. And I almost feel as though, to a certain extent, he was kind of thinking to himself, I told you so. And he wanted the players to see it firsthand for themselves.
Well, you
I-
only get 17 of these.
You were
You
talk-
better win them when you can.
Paul, you were talking about Bostic and you were given a good counter to the whole he can't play the position thing. I wonder if you're not right, though, that maybe the reason they like Bostic is because he does what he's fucking told, and he may not do it. He may not have the athleticism to do it at the level that the other guy alternatives could do it, but maybe he at least does what he's told. He's playing the position the way that they're telling him to play it, and maybe that's right now they're putting
Yeah,
him.
except for the fact that he's the guy that was tagged as being out of position on that 3rd and 16 in week 1 against the Chargers that we gave up on their go-ahead drive. I mean, we had them pinned in their end. All we had to do was convert, and he's the guy that got pegged as being the dude that was out of place in all.
Talk
of
about
the-
a common trend that
How dare
literally
you
happened last
undermine my
week.
point?
Well, you know, what did I saw a stat somewhere, and I forget where. I wish I could remember where I saw it. He's been targeted 16 times, and his guys caught 15 balls.
But he's not a coverage guy. That's a physical skills thing to me. And every player misses an assignment. I mean, I don't know how often what his grades are, but he's a guy. He's an okay NFL linebacker. He wouldn't be starting on a lot of teams.
I think he actually plays the run better than he does the pass.
Mm.
I mean, how many times do we see him in the backfield causing havoc for the ball carrier? Happens quite a bit, especially when they try and turn the corner on him. The guy is right there, but pass
So if
protection.
he's a first down guy, he's a first down guy.
Yeah.
Play him on
Well,
first.
Maybe we should have addressed linebacker in the offseason.
Gee. I wonder who came up with that idea.
I'm going to keep beating that drum until I see
quarterback.
linebackers starting to make plays. Gents, I'm going to be the guy again. I'm going to bail.
All right, buddy.
Love you
Good
guys.
night.
This will be more fun next week to talk about a win.
God,
Oh,
Sure hope so.
well,
so
we are playing at 1 Sunday, right?
yeah, I'll be doing the inventory, so I'm not actually going to be able to watch. I'll
I
be
doubt very seriously
following
he's
it on
gone
my
down
phone.
here. I was lucky enough to get the game this last weekend, but I doubt they decide to show Atlanta and Washington and Dallas this week if Dallas isn't playing at 1 o'clock.
Here, hold on. The Burgundy Burner posted the coverage map, so you can
Yeah,
see
I was
your
just looking for that, but I'll bet I don't get it.
Yeah, we're not.
distribution maps.
I've still got the Sunday ticket. And by the way, did you guys hear that Amazon might be buying the Sunday ticket package?
Yeah.
Hope
It'd be
that
awesome if they just make it part of Prime. Then I'd get it again. But
The hell's the game?
I'll tell you what, I desperately
No, you
wanna be
get
part of the
Carolina
game.
at Dallas. We're up against Carolina at Dallas.
I desperately want to be part of the game chat, but I am consistently 3/4 of a play to a play and a half behind everybody else on the chat.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
So I open the window and I kind of pay attention to you guys, but not too much because I don't want to know what's coming. And every time I
Well-
comment, I'm a play behind. So everybody's going, Bob, that's old news.
So here's what I've considered and wondered if we should set up a secondary chat for streamers.
I think everyone's on a different time, even if you do
It's
that.
hard. It's hard. Yeah, and I get that because I've at times when it's down to Mike and a couple other people, I've paused so that I'm on the same, or at least close, so we're all in the same, at least on the same play.
It's a lot more fun when we're not horrible. I'll just say that. Even though I said this after Sunday, I give you guys credit. Sunday, even as bad as that was to watch, at least people kept their sense of humor for the most part. It wasn't like the suicide, wasn't like Jim Jones handing out the Kool-Aid in the chat room. People were reasonably in good humor, even though it was a horrible game.
I think it didn't take very long, John, for everybody to realize that we were on the field with a team that
We
has
couldn't keep up
legitimate
with.
Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah.
You know, and let's face it, not only are we in the weakest division, we're in the weakest conference, right? I mean, I every week I struggle when I'm doing pick 'em. It's a whole lot easier to pick the NFC than it is to pick the AFC.
I don't know,
'Cause there's
man.
there's going to be a couple of really good teams in
That
the
don't make
AFC
it, yeah.
sitting at home in January.
Yeah, but I would take. There's probably 3 teams in the NFC I would take over almost any team in the AFC.
Don't you guys think the NFL, like, there aren't that many terrible teams? I mean, there's a couple terrible teams, like the Jets are pretty terrible.
The
There are some
Jaguars.
terrible, but not as much as in the past where, I mean, it's been hell doing pick 'em this year because
Mhm.
there's just been, you just can't, you
Yeah,
just
but
don't know.
you almost can't find yourself picking against the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Packers.
Even the Saints, it's hard to know. Like you said, which Saints team is going to show up?
Which,
You just don't know.
which Jameis Winston's going to show up.
Right. Well, same. Yeah.
I think we can beat them next week.
I think
I
what
think-
we're proving right now in the NFL is that this becomes a more quarterback centric league every single year.
So
I mean,
could you look back over the last 5 years and wonder if the commitment to the D line was the wrong commitment?
gee, you just lobbed John a softball, didn't you? Yeah, that was a here, John. Just please.
I
get
just
up on your
know. I
soapbox.
mean, I don't know. I'm laughing because for 10 years plus, we've been talking about the trenches. We've got a pretty good O-line, even though we don't have a bunch of stars on our O-line. We've got a pretty good O-line. They can run block. They can protect pretty well, better than we thought they would. Really,
Mhm.
but our D, and we, in theory, we've invested all this money, obviously, in the D line and high draft picks. So I still feel like that's got to be a solid way to start to build a team. But my whole thing has always been, and I've said this 1,000 times, how do you get your quarterback? I keep hoping that Taylor Heineke, these are just growing pains, and that despite all the stuff you read about, he doesn't have an NFL arm, he doesn't have the pedigree, he's been in the league 7 years and whatever, and isn't a start, and just as a starter, all that stuff. We've seen guys before in the NFL that were late bloomers that made it and that were really good quarterbacks. I just keep hoping that he's that guy. And part of it is, if he's not, how in the hell are we going to find a quarterback? Because we just have had no ability to find one. Even if we have a top 5 pick, it's already kind of, people are talking about, well, it's not a great year to be picking a quarter. Oh, that's great. That's great, because we might have a top 5 pick and we still might not have a surefire.
Yeah, but then we trade up to 2 for a guy that is not an NFL quarterback. He's a college quarterback.
So I don't know. That makes me really nervous because I think I could see it going on and on and on like it has. We need some luck at that position.
So here's a theory that was floated to me this offseason by Tom, who's my uncle, who's on the board, Tom Skins fan. This year was a stopgap, and we're going to make a serious play for Russell Wilson next year.
I'll be all over that. But I guess the argument against that is, why would Russell Wilson want to come here?
No, we would trade for him. He's still under contract for 1 more year.
Yeah, but I mean, why would he agree to that?
Because how is this team any less talented than Seattle?
It's just not a marquee location, I think. I mean, I think
Why
that's
does
part of the
Marquis
problem.
matter? He's made enough money. It doesn't.
You have to live in Washington. You have to live in Washington. There's no winning tradition here. Recent winning tradition. The media is brutal. The weather.
Yeah, I think we as fans put way too much. We invest way too much into that. I don't think football players care. Your
Their
Twitter
wives
still
care.
gets them the same amount of hits.
Matt
Whether you
Stafford
play for
didn't
the-
want it. Matt
What?
Stafford didn't want to come here.
No, Matt Stafford. I don't think he didn't want to come here.
When's the last time a top tier
Did you hear
quarterback?
how? Hold on. Did you hear how Matt Stafford became a player for the Rams?
Oh, I know there was a lot of stuff going on there, but the point
They were literally on vacation in Boca Raton or somewhere with McVay and Stafford.
Yep.
It had nothing to do with the market.
We don't have Sean McVay. We got a boat, but Dan Snyder's on us. So that fucks that plan up. I just don't think, I mean, if I was a top tier quarterback, I can't even come up with an argument why I would want to come to DC. So I think you have to draft one, and we don't have a good history of that, but
See, maybe I'm a homer, but if I'm a top tier quarterback, I look at this team. I look at this team the same way Peyton looked at Denver. Why would Peyton want to go to Denver when he went there? You know what I'm saying? Like, who the hell wants to live in play in Mile High Stadium 8 times a year, where anytime after October 1st it could snow? You know, and you're playing in some of the most adverse, the most uncomfortable positions as you could play in. Why does Aaron Rodgers want to play in Green Bay when he could have gone to Houston? Like, who? I think
I'm not saying it's only about the climate and the city, but it's certainly not
ever
like
been
a
to
non-factor. It's a huge factor. And again, those guys have wives. They're not going to go move someplace where I'm just saying DC, who the fuck wants to live in Washington, DC? And I grew up there. And I know you live there, but the traffic is horrible. The economy is, the prices there are sky high on everything.
You're talking about people that make $1 million a week.
They still want to keep their money, man. I don't know. I hope you're right, because God knows, he'd be the best.
It's a theory, and I'm not saying I buy into that theory, but it's possible. And that would be Rivera and company looking at 22 and 23.
I honestly, I feel like it comes down to, for most of these guys, it comes down to 2 factors. Am I going to start? And can I win a Super Bowl?
I don't think I think the Super Bowl secondary.
Now, by the time they've played several years in the league, if they're any good at all, Derek, and they're smart at all, they've set themselves up for retirement. Money is no longer a thing. Do they want the big contract? Yeah. These guys all have egos, and that's a way of keeping score, right? There's in the soccer world, Sir Alex Ferguson, who used to manage Man United, made a point with Ronaldo about, if you don't have the biggest contract in the room, you're not the man. And in the NFL, if you don't have the biggest contract, you're not the quarterback. There's a whole order to keeping score in the back room. Does Tom Brady need any more money? No. Does he expect to be paid like Tom Brady? Yes, he does. He's not going to give anybody a break on that.
Now, 18 years in, he's done it for 17, where he didn't care if he made the most money. Guess why? Because he had one of these on every finger,
right,
on both hands.
But the point is, now he's trying to put one of those on every one of Giselle's fingers.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I think he wanted to settle was it Brady or was it the coach argument for quickly and emphatically, and I think he did that. I think that was a big driving, and I think he looked around, he thought, which team is like got enough talent
on the brink?
Why?
But hold on, though. Like, can you honestly tell me that this team is any worse off than the Bucs were?
And
before Brady got here.
Brady is still the best paid player on the Bucs.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think there's any evidence that we have that kind of talent yet. We're not playing to that level.
But look at what the Bucs were doing before Brady got there. Jameis threw for 30 and 30.
They had a lot of talent on that team, and it's Florida. I don't know.
Well, the whole tax thing.
It sounds like wishful thinking to me, man.
I don't know.
Like on a massive level.
I don't know. I just don't see. I don't see Washington anymore as the premier stop for free agents anymore, unless we're willing to break the bank for somebody.
We don't even do that anymore. We don't.
Right, and that's my point, John. That's exactly where I'm going. Is maybe we were never the premier stop for free agents, except that we were a big payday at the end of their career.
It's a bummer though, man, because I just keep coming back to that same thing, which is, and I know people say, well, you can find a quarterback. People are always going to say the same thing. Tom Brady was drafted in the 7th round, and Russell Wilson. Yeah, those are once every 20-year exceptions. Yes, you can find a quarterback outside of round 1, but it sure as hell helps to be able to get your pick of the litter in any given year.
You
And
know,
I just don't know if we're going to have a string of years where we have that opportunity because we're a 2 or 3 or 4 win team. It just doesn't seem like we always seem to win enough to be, pick number 9, 10, or 11 or beyond.
I'm gonna, you saying that, I'm gonna go through and look at all 32. Somebody's probably already done this somewhere, but I'll go do this for next week just to see. Or maybe I'll start a thread on the board, right? All 32 starting quarterbacks opening day. Where were they drafted? And let's just see. Or maybe we go even deeper. How about we go the first 2 in every, the first 2 quarterbacks on every roster in the league and see where they were drafted. And I will be willing to bet you that predominantly you're looking at at first round draft picks.
I know I saw some stats maybe about a year ago where they showed the incredible number of first round busts, but I don't think that, to me, that's just about teams will reach for quarterbacks in the first round because they're desperate and and honestly, it's probably worth it a lot of times. If you stumble on one, it's worth it. It's worth it for the other 3 times you didn't hit on one. But I just think in general, if you want to find a franchise quarterback, it's extremely helpful to have one of those top picks.
Well, we
You still
reached
can
for
blow it.
Haskins because we didn't think he was going to be there in
But
the next round.
Here's the thing with that though, is you have to own that. If you trade up for it, then you're talking about a whole different conversation. If you own the 3rd pick and you take a guy with the 3rd pick and he busts out, that's fine. If you trade up to the 3rd pick and he doesn't pan out, you've then mortgaged a lot more.
Well, we already did that, right? I mean, we've been there and done that. That set us back.
Our best quarterback pick over the last 25 years was a 4th rounder.
Cousins, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy isn't even considered, like, a lot of fans, nobody actually looks at him and says that guy can be the guy.
I just think back to Bob's original point is it just feels like until we get a special quarterback, like a special long-term quarterback, we're just gonna wallow in that mediocre, reign.
Well, that's the way the league is now. So I ask again, was our approach incorrect? Should we not have invested in the D-line and instead invested elsewhere?
I'm going to say the same thing I said on the board when John asked about Young versus Herbert.
That was a mistake.
Nobody had Herbert as the number 2 player in that draft. Nobody. He wasn't number 2 on anybody's board. Were the Chargers thrilled when he dropped to them at what? They drafted him at 10, I think. Sixth. But if I remember correctly, there were some people that thought they were reaching at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really fault them. I know it sounds weird. It sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, which maybe I am a little bit, but it's not so much that I fault them for the reason that you just said, which is that nobody really knew what he was, or maybe his college coaches knew, but NFL scouts didn't seem to know what he was, or they all would have taken him. But by the same token, and I just feel like we're going to regret that pick for a long time.
You can't, though.
The quarterbacks go number 1 in the draft because of how ridiculously important the position is. And I don't know, maybe this sounds a little bit like hyperbole, but honestly, in team sports, I can't think of another position that is as important to their team as quarterback is to an NFL franchise. There isn't an equivalent in soccer. There isn't an equivalent in basketball. There isn't an equivalent in baseball. I've had people argue pitchers, but in a 162 game season, pitchers start 30 if they stay healthy all season long, right? I'm sorry. No, a quarterback handles the ball every single offensive snap of your game. And if you're playing it right, you have more offensive snaps than defensive snaps. And there is no equivalent in team sports anywhere else in the world. And so we see, I mean, the consensus number one player. in
I
last
have
year's
an
draft was
equivalent.
Chase
I have an
Young, and he
equivalent.
went number 2 because Burrow was a quarterback.
Well, you said team sports. Never mind. No equivalent. I was
I
thinking
guess
NASCAR driver. That's about the only equivalent.
I guess to answer your question, Derek, it's not that I'm opposed to building the lines. It's not like we drafted, 7 receivers in a row like Detroit did, a decade ago or whatever with their first rounder. But I think the thing is, if you have to be able to answer the question, how are we going to get a franchise quarterback? If you're not going to use a top pick on one, setting aside the fact that the owner probably should be the one making the decision, that's just a little aside. You have to have some answer to the question of how are you going to find a franchise quarterback while you're committing all of these assets to the trenches. I don't have a problem with them committing them to the trenches, but at some point you could have the greatest lines in the NFL, but if your quarterback can't play, it's not going to matter. It really won't matter, I don't believe.
Right. And the counter to that is what's more detrimental, though? Taking the better player and not getting your quarterback, or taking a quarterback that might not be the better player because the value of the position. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I guess what I would say is if you can't pick the right quarterback, then it doesn't matter. Then none of this conversation matters. If you chronically don't have the ability to find a difference-making quarterback, then we're doomed forever.
Okay, well, we haven't had the same people making the same picks for 10 years, so they can have that
You sure about that?
luxury for a long time. But no, okay, the front office is in place now. Could they have taken the Herbert instead of Young? Sure.
Or Mac
But-
Jones or whoever else from that class turns out to be a pretty good quarterback. I don't know who that'll be, but
I wouldn't put Daniel Jones above Young. Would you?
I wouldn't put who above Jones? Above
Jones
Young?
above Young.
In terms of impact, if he turns out to be a good quarterback, yeah, hell yeah, I would put him above.
I don't think he's there though. I don't think he's a Tua. Would you rather have Tua than Young?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying, I mean, that's not the argument I'm making. Any quarterback is a better pick than Chase Young. But if you get a good quarterback at that second pick, you can forget it. You can never mention Chase Young to me again.
Right, but my point is, it's not like. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not like you can go into every draft and say, "Well, I have the number 2 pick, and there's going to be 4 quarterbacks that are legit." You know what I'm saying? Herbert was the guy, and he was the 3rd quarterback off the board. And Burrow, who is believed to be the best quarterback in that draft, hasn't proven it yet. He's shown flashes, but he's also been broken. He has suffered an injury that most quarterbacks don't suffer in their entire career.
He also went to a team that was a whole lot. San Diego, LA, whatever they were at the time, wasn't as bad as Cincinnati is.
That's true.
And that's a
major player here. What does Burrow do on this team? What does Herbert do on this team?
Well, again, if we're gonna play that argument, again, it doesn't matter what we talk about, because if we can't take a really talented quarterback and groom him into a great NFL quarterback, then we're done. I mean, I just don't buy that argument, that particular argument. I wish, I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating. There's no real short answer, but again, what I always come back to is, where are you going to find a really good quarterback ever in Washington? How are you going to do it? Because I see no way forward. I don't.
This year was the year I felt like we could have gotten a really good quarterback in the 2nd round, even at our pick. And it still didn't happen.
And that's another argument or another conversation to have. I agree. Davis Mills is playing in Houston right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Davis Mills is ready to play this year. What I'm saying is, if Rivera and company are looking at 22 and 23. Why bring in Fitzpatrick when you could have drafted a guy like Mills, played Allen and Heineke in 21, and groom the guy?
The other thing that I feel like is incredibly important to getting a quarterback and grooming a quarterback, and that's being able to keep the guy upright, right? I mean, Cincinnati got Burrows last year, but then they couldn't keep him upright.
Well,
How many?
that was a fluke. That was a fluke ass accident. Allen got rolled over on him.
I know, but that's not.
But if not Allen, then somebody else would have.
Exactly, right. And a lot of that has to do with your offensive line play. I mean, how many potentially really good quarterbacks have come into this league and then never been the same again after their first year because they got shell shocked?
Matt Schaub, David Carr.
David Carr is the one that comes immediately to mind to me. Yeah. And so you spend a high draft pick.
2 Houston quarterbacks, by the way.
You spend a high draft pick on a guy and you think he's going to be the guy, but you've got mediocre guys up front, or maybe not even mediocre guys up front. You piecemeal a line together. This actually may have been the year to take the quarterback because we're actually playing pretty good pass protection. And it's not because Heineke's making a lot of runs with his feet, right? I mean, we've seen him actually set down and settle in the pocket. So
when's the last time we had terrible O-line play? Because I don't really remember that. Of all the things that we've been horrible at over the last 20 years, it seems like we've always given the quarterback decent protection. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like something that.
Well, the big thing with even Griffin, RG3, the savior. Even the thing with him was that he was taking a 7-step drop when it should have been 3. The O-line was blocking for a 3-step drop, and he's taking 7. He gets pummeled. Like that was a legitimate thing that was talked about, and that Gruden couldn't wrap his head around. So to your point, John, it's been a long time since the offensive line is not. It's not a strength, but it's not a liability.
I mean, they've been serviceable, I think, for quite a while. I don't know. I really hope. I keep having fantasies not about Russell Wilson, but they're going to lure Sean McVay back and give him the keys to the castle. I don't see that happening either, though.
I don't see McVay leaving LA. Why would?
No, he is on a fast track to the Super Bowl.
That may be the biggest mistake we ever made. Right there is letting him leave town.
Yeah, that was if I remember correctly, that was a desperate hope that Gruden could convince Cousins to stay.
I made a comment this week on Disco made a Twitter comment about something, and my response to him was, no, the biggest mistake was letting McVay go, and I got pummeled. Guys were like, man, Gruden was coming off a playoff year. We'd have crucified the front office if they fired him. And I was like, if you guys were ever convinced that Gruden was the answer, you were not watching the same team I was watching. We got lucky getting into the playoffs.
And it doesn't matter what the fans think. The front office and the owner are paid to know, is this coach going to be the long-term? And they clearly didn't, because they give him a 1-year extension or whatever we were doing at the time. I mean,
you make that decision because you're smarter than everybody on Twitter. That's why you make that call.
Right. You don't have, I mean, who the hell cares if it's popular or not? They'd get over it, right? About now, they
shouldn't be. You shouldn't care.
Right. Exactly. And that was my point. I mean, I don't get why we let a young, talented, obviously talented. I mean, the whole reason we made the playoffs, everybody pretty much understood the whole reason we made the playoffs was McVay's offense. Gruden was brought in as an offensive mastermind, and then McVay is who got us to the playoffs with the offense. And yet we're going to let McVay walk and keep Gruden.
And now McVay's on the verge of one of the best teams to touch the field, and Gruden is at home playing golf.
Yeah, I love the whole thing about hindsight is 50-50 kind of thing, or 20-20, whichever.
Yeah, well, guess what? You need to be smarter than us.
But it's also called organizational learning from your past mistakes. Like, if you're not sure about your head coach, you have no head coach. It's kind of like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. It's the same thing. If you're not sure, that Jay Gruden's going to be the greatest coach, that you've had in 20 years, then
Yeah, why are you?
upgrade.
Yeah,
Like
don't
what
hold
loyalty
on
can
for
we have to
status
Jay
quo.
Gruden, for God's sake? It's just like who said this week, don't be a fan later. One of the players said that, and people were just having a total meltdown. It's like, I get it, man. It's like, don't tell me not to be a fan later. Who the hell are you? You just got here, man. I don't even know. You don't even your parking spot's not even in paint yet. I really hate it when players say that. It's like they deserve to get lit up. Don't be a fan later. Fuck you.
Wow. Boone live, ladies and gentlemen. Paul, you're being really quiet. You're just enjoying the show at this point, aren't you?
At this point, that's exactly the case. And I'm listening to this, and oh my goodness, if we aren't the most beat up fan base out there, I don't know who is. It's depressing at times. It really is. It's hard to be a fan of this team. But at the end of the day, we all hold on to that tiny little glimmer of hope. And I think, unfortunately, the organization has sometimes fallen victim to that as well. When you guys were just talking about, oh, why hold on to Jay Gruden type thing over Sean McVay? We hold on to any little glimmer of hope we can because we think, oh my goodness, we are finally onto something here. And at the end of the day, we see it was a train wreck in the first place.
So I got my COVID. Go ahead.
PTSD.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was in the middle of my COVID booster fever dream last night, and I woke up this morning, and I kid you not, I got in the shower, I jumped in my truck, I'm heading to work, and I thought to myself, it just popped in my head, the best thing that ever could have happened to the Washington football team is for them to have moved to another city. Just give us an expansion team. The Redskins are dead. We can, we don't have to go through all of that. We'll just
something I've argued for a couple years.
Just move them. Get Daniel Snyder as far away from Washington D.C. as you can. He can go.
Move him to London. He can have that team.
And just give us a scrub expansion team. I don't care. I mean, I think it would have been better. I hate to say that, but
with my luck, he would take the team to Canada and Toronto up here.
No, yeah. Well, hold on, Paul. You would still be a fan of this team. Don't even lie.
Oh, 100%. There's no questions there. So that's why when sometimes people will talk to me and ask me in regards to the name, and I know I'm taking this off on a completely different tangent. People will ask things like, why do you care about the name? Why are you so passionate about it? Why are you so sad that we've lost the moniker Redskins? I grew up in Canada. I have no affiliation with the DC area, with Washington. The Redskins are all I know. That's who I cheer for. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it didn't happen. Sean McVay's not the head coach, and we're still not the Redskins in Ashburn, and Dan Snyder's thriving in his mythical sabbatical. And
I was convinced the NFL was going to move him off. Convinced. I can't believe it didn't happen.
Man, they're all worried about it happening to them.
Mm-hmm. It's all karma, man. That's what I'm afraid of. It's all karma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
I'm trying to figure out what we as a fan base did to deserve this level of bad karma, John. I don't.
It's all that swag we bought, man.
Here's the thing, though. Guess what? I'm a fan of the Washington Nationals. We had the same thought, and guess what happened? We won. And the Caps. We figured it out.
Forever? We had the same thought about being doomed forever.
Yes. The Capitals had no reason to understand why we could not get over it. We were contenders for 10 years. We had President's Cups. We had every reason to believe we were the best team out there. and we were always snake bit. The Nationals, the same thing. 4 or 5 years, it was always we were winning the most games, 90 plus, setting records, doing all that, and we found a way. So that is where I hold my hope, is that this team is going to figure it out, and
We have quality people. I mean, we have.
it has nothing to do with us four idiots talking football. No offense,
Well,
it
three
has
idiots is
nothing to
all.
do with us. You know what I mean? We're just not competitive. We just have to get competitive. And then when we get competitive, we have to figure out how to win. And we have to get hot at the right time and figure it out.
It's not really unlike Austin Powers, you know, the whole he lost his mojo thing. That's really it's the same kind of a thing.
You know, I remember a day when the entirety of the league didn't want to play the Washington Redskins. Nobody wanted to play us. Even in their house, they didn't want to play us. And now we're everybody's homecoming pick.
Well, to this day, the 91 Redskins is viewed as the best Super Bowl team ever.
The 91 team, yeah.
That team outscored at home. I want to say through the first 6 weeks at home, I think it outscored opponents like 125 to nothing.
You know, and the amazing part of that is just how fast that team fell apart.
It was 1 year. The next year, it just disappeared.
Well, the next year they went 9-7 under Gibbs, and that was the year he called it quits.
I think Rubisky took,
Yeah,
not
Rubisky.
Rubisky. Jesus, who's the offensive or the defensive
RD?
coordinator?
No,
Pardee?
Pettibone. Richie Pettibone got
Pettibone-
the head
Pettibone
coaching
took
job
over.
the year after that. But,
Yeah.
but Gibbs didn't quit in the Super Bowl. Gibbs coached a year after the Super Bowl, and then he left. And Pettibone coached the next year, and we went 3-13.
And he got
Under
fired. And, yeah, it just went all to hell.
And that's when they brought in Norvell.
Which don't think about it too much because you might start pining for the Norvell years.
I'm telling you.
Then we sent a
It
deal.
wasn't so
with them.
bad, guys. It wasn't as bad as we maybe we have made it out to be.
Norv and Brad Johnson.
Norv and Brad Johnson had the 2000 season. That might have been the best roster we've had since.
Did any of you
91.
guys see the article that Keim put together with an NFL statistical organization about they ranked all the Washington quarterbacks of the last, 20 years or whatever it was. And Brad Johnson ended up ranked number 2.
Yeah,
And
all
Keim was
58
like, and Keim said, I feel like this is low. I feel like he's the best quarterback of the last 25 or 30 years. And I think he's right.
It's hard to argue.
Who was number 1?
I think they had Cousins at number 1, but they heavily weighted yards and,
Right.
there were, and that was Keim's argument was, if we weight this a little differently, this changes radically. Kirk Cousins is arguably one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks we've had in the last 30 years. And nobody's going to fight that, but
But he didn't win shit.
he didn't win anything. Brad Johnson, on the other hand, actually won games and could be relied on to go win games.
Yeah. I think passer and quarterback are different things. Johnson was a quarterback and
Cousins had a lot of
Cousins
inflated
is a passer.
stats.
So I just thought it was a fascinating article.
Well, let's hope we have better luck finding a quarterback than we have with the guys on that list, because that is, if you put that side by side with the number of coaches and coordinators we've had, it's like a walk into the desert. It's really bad. Even for us, it's really bad.
I'm telling you, the Jets and the Lions are probably the only 2 more inept franchises in the NFL for longer.
Yeah, I have a dear friend who's a Jets fan, so I have to, every once in a while, I have to take solace and send him some mocking text, because there are not too many other people I can send mocking text to. All right, guys, there's light in the future somewhere.
It's coming.
Uh,
All right, but
We wouldn't be here if we didn't believe it, right?
yeah, it's too early to be. It's too early to be this down. It's just like you said, Paul. We just seen this act so many times. I mean, it's like we can quote all the funniest lines from the sitcom because we've seen it 150 times.
Yeah.
It's like Shawshank, everyone knows the lines. Only
Yeah.
ours are more tragic than inspiring or whatever.
they
I know, and-
definitely
and
are
as a-
depressing.
And as a result of all that, I don't know about you guys, but I've just noticed from a personal standpoint over the last couple of years, it's not that I don't care because I'm very passionate about it. I invest a lot of time into the team, come onto the boards, hang out with you guys, etc. I'm very passionate about them, but I watch these games unfold, and a lot of times I just find it very hard to get angry anymore or let it bother me for the whole week. I remember when I was younger, I would be like ill over a loss. I wouldn't want to go to school. I wouldn't want to go to work.
That's called
I'm numb
conditioning.
now. Yeah, it's complete numbness when I watch these games. Nothing surprises me.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if we do have a really tough season. How motivated we're going to be to come in here on Wednesday night.
Hey, Paul, you want to know where that started for me? I can tell you the moment that started for me, and it changed my whole scope. Was Rakib Ismail on Thanksgiving Day. That game made me realize that this team is never winning. Like, the game's not over until it's actually over. You know what I mean? I every game I watch, I'm like, I'm waiting to see that guy streak down the sideline and get a wide open pass. We've won enough. The Miracle at Midnight, with the Tony Romo interception, week 17 to beat Dallas. We've done enough to make me know that we have a chance, but that moment will forever live in infamy for me. And I will always look at every game I'm in and say, it's only 8 points. There's a chance they can beat us. They can come back and do it. It's not done till it's done. It's not 0-0 yet. I can't accept it.
All right, guys, I'm going to head out. Thanks for
All right, fellas.
entertaining me.
Yeah.
See ya.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much.